To chat some more, we're joined by a sports reporter, that's Joseph Mohale. Good afternoon, Joseph, and thank you for your time on the SABC News Desk.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers at home.
All right, Joseph, let's start with the big Sundowns win on Thursday. It's been a marathon of sorts for them, hasn't it? I mean, they've played 55 games, then that win their 35th this year, and they also lifted the CAF Champions Cup in October. How is this team getting it right, and can they sustain this performance into the new year, do you think?
You know, when we talk about the having to participate in the continent and represent the country in the continent, at the same time having to keep up with the domestic league as well. That's something that Orlando Pirates haven't been able to do. Most South African teams haven't been able to do, and this is something that this is the first time in a very long time that a South African team has been able to dominate Africa and come back at home and still do very well. And when we're looking at the Sundowns team, the way they're going right now, we're not going to have the Orlando Pirates or whatever issue where after doing very well in the continent, the players find themselves quite exhausted because of the number of competitions. The Sundowns team, the team that we see at Sundowns at the moment, it's a very big team. It has so many quality players. They can have they can even fulfill
So you feel fatigue is not going to be a factor there, Joseph?
I don't think fatigue will be a factor, especially looking at the number of quality players that Sundowns currently have, and the coaching staff in Sundowns as well. Surely they would have planned for this one. Surely they would have. That's one thing Peter Msimane has been quite emphasizing of late, that they need to rotate players, and they can afford to do that with their squad. I mean, if you take out Kik and Dolly, if you bring in Anthony Lafaux, it's still fine. If Castro was injured, which was their main guy before they won the tournament, was injured, and Pechitao stepped up and he's been doing very well. Castro is back now. Kama Billiard, they have quite a huge squad, and I don't think, honestly speaking, in a short term run, maybe probably till next year, I don't think Sundowns will be really much affected by this. In fact, they are considered to be quite league contenders this season as well.
All right, let's take a broader view. Can you quickly take us through the first part of the year, and what have been some of the highs and lows of the season?
Definitely the highs and lows, I think, would be the lows would be then Kaizer Chiefs. Kaizer Chiefs haven't been doing very well under Steve Kompela, but of late I think they sort of like I think they're finding their feet under the new coach who came in last year. Kaizer Chiefs haven't been quite, they've been quite disappointing for one of the big teams, and Orlando Pirates as well haven't been there. Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates finished last season, and this season they haven't won anything as well. So for the big two Soweto Giants, it has been which are quite traditional dominant teams in South African football. It has been quite disappointing seeing them not doing very well this season, and even last season as well. And as for Sundowns, of course, that would have been the highs, lifting the CAF. I mean, even for us, it was something that we never thought it would happen so soon. But the attitude that they displayed, I think it's something that needs to be commended for these players, the attitude and the commitment and that's what they have done and still continuing to do. That surely it means that they've been working really hard behind the scenes, which is something that we hardly see. We only see the results, but this thing, the way the team is playing, the physique of the team is very fit. They're very healthy, those players. So we need to commend the visuals at Sundowns.
Joseph, we are on the cusp of the January window transfer that's opening soon. So big teams with a lot of financial muscle will be looking to strengthen their squads. What can we look out for? What can we expect?
It's quite a difficult one, because it's in mid-season, and we hardly expect any big signings, any big movements, because it's during the season, and most teams wouldn't really like to let go of their players during mid-season and all that stuff. So there isn't really much planning when it comes to this transfer window, but we do expect teams like Kaizer Chiefs and perhaps maybe Orlando Pirates to bring in a number of players to strengthen their bid for success this season, or to gain any to win any cup competitions, to ensure that they improve from last season. So we do expect that the two big teams, normally the transfer window, this is very quiet transfer window, but as for how things have panned out, as we speak right now, finishing last season without a win, and this season two teams finishing last season without any trophy, and this season again they need to improve from that, and they haven't improved. They haven't shown any signs of improvement, in fact. So therefore they would have to definitely go into the market and try and bring in a number of acquisitions that will help and strengthen their success going forward and before the end of this campaign.
All right, let's move on to the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations, the continent's flagship tournament, and this country versus club controversy. How do you think all these dynamics are going to play out, Joseph?
Hey, this one is it's a very difficult one. This one is a very difficult one. It's quite a topical issue, this one, especially at this time of the year. If you look at how our calendar as Africa is designed in terms of our football, in terms of our season, we normally start in January, we end in December. So therefore, during the December season and January, that is off season. So that's where we can play. Normally big tournaments, international tournaments, play at off season. So that was our off season. We're playing the tournament at that time. But most of our players play in Europe. Most of our players, big players, we rely on big European teams to develop these players so that they can attract numbers when they come home. So most of our players play in Europe, and the European season starts in June, like our South African one, starts in June and ends in June again, maybe say mid-year. So therefore, during January, when this tournament is being hosted, it's hosted during mid-season in Europe. And a number of European teams like your Manchester United, big teams in Europe like your Liverpool, will have to release their players, where else at the same time they find themselves in a situation where they have to compete for silverware in their domestic league, and now they have to sort of all of a sudden let players go to the African Cup of Nations, which is something that is expected. Of course, players must represent their national team, but the timing of or the scheduling of the tournament does not suit that of Europe. Not really Europe interested, but we're sending a lot of players in Europe, so therefore we need to look after them. They will lose their places and stuff if they don't.
All right, Joseph, very quickly before I let you go, I can't let you go without asking you this one. SAFA's dismissal of coach Sheikh Mashaba. Are you completely surprised by the outcome, or was it a long time coming, and the implications for the sport going forward?
I mean, I don't know what is it exactly that's happening with the Bafana coaches. Every time when somebody comes in, they're nice and all that stuff, but as soon as time goes by, it's sort of like something, maybe the pressure of delivering. Sheikh Mashaba, when he came through, he took Bafana to African Cup of Nations. That was for the first time, I think, I can't even remember, but in so many years that we qualified through the qualification process. We went to a tournament through the qualification process. So he was doing very well, but of late, the things that he's been doing, the things that he's been said about him in the media, one of those, for example, now after the Senegal game where he won, and he had an altercation with his bosses, and this is somebody who's in
view of the media. Yes.
This is somebody who's in a leadership. This is somebody who's been trusted with the careers of young people. This is somebody who's supposed to be giving mentorship to these young people. So therefore, if he does not respect his superiors, how is he expecting these young boys to sort of like respect his command as well? So therefore, that is another issue of conduct, his conduct in the media, and of course the team hasn't been doing as well as we speak. Yes. We're not in the African Cup of Nations.
Joseph, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. Perhaps we'll have coffee sometime and we'll chat some more. This is our resident sports reporter, Joseph Mohale, joining us on the SABC news desk. Time to take a short break, or rather it's time for the weather.